How's everybody doing? It's PR and I'm back at you with another installment of my top 3, a countdown show where we look at my top 3 favorite players or events from a certain category. A home run hitter is a baseball player that hits a lot of home runs or balls that go over the fence at a high rate. In football, a home run hitter is a player that can score touchdowns from any part of the field. This countdown will look at one offensive, one defensive, and one special teams player that could score from any part of the field and did so with consistency since I've been a fan of the Eagles. Before we begin, what are your favorite home run hitters for your team? Make sure you comment about it in the comment section below because I would love to read it. Okay, let's get into it. Over the time I've been a fan of the Eagles, I've been blessed with some pretty terrible and overrated wide receivers. For every 5 Todd Pinksons the Eagles had, they had 1 Terrell Owens. For every 4 Reggie Browns the team had, they had 1 Kevin Curtis. And finally, for every 3 Josh Huffs, there was 1 Jeremy Maclin. However, one of the greatest deep threats in Eagles history has to be the former second-round pick out of the University of California named DeSean Jackson. DeSean made an immediate impact on not only offense but also special teams. He caught over 900 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in his first season. Well, it should have been 3, but he decided to do this. At least it wasn't the first time for him. DeSean also had a punt return for a touchdown against the Redskins. From 2009 to 2010, DeSean was not only a deadly return man that was probably deadlier than anyone not named Devin Hester, but he was also a Pro Bowler in those years, along with 2013, where between those 3 years, he scored a total of 24 receiving touchdowns. Unfortunately, then Eagles head coach Chip Kelly had DeSean released, and he would sign with the Redskins from 2014 to 2016, then signed with the Buccaneers from 2017 to 2018, and finally was traded back to the Eagles in 2019, where he would score 2 touchdowns in a Week 1 game against the Redskins, but never played a full game again for the rest of the season. DeSean Jackson was one of those players that you would want on your team as long as he wasn't trash-talking opponents and causing fights, or you wouldn't want to play against him because he was fast and elusive and would likely be too much against the slower corner and safety. My favorite DeSean Jackson home run hitting moment occurred in the 2010 season during a Week 10 game against the 4-4 Washington Redskins in a rematch game on Monday Night Football. Before this game started, former Eagles quarterback Donovan McNabb received a giant contract of 5 years and $78 million from the Washington Redskins. During the pregame, DeSean Jackson jawed with Redskins cornerback D'Angelo Hall and safety LaRon Landry, a battle that DeSean Jackson had no chance of winning physically. Fast forward to the first play of the game at the Eagles' 12-yard line, where Michael Vick ran a play-action bootleg and would throw the ball deep over the middle to DeSean Jackson, who had just burned LaRon Landry all the way for a touchdown. The Eagles would win this game 59-28 in a game called the Monday Night Massacre. The Redskins would only win 2 more games all season and the Eagles would win the division. However, this was a prime example of how DeSean Jackson could score from any part on the field in some of the most unpredictable ways. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, this was a tough one between Lito Shepherd and Asante Samuel. And while there were some great home run hitting moments from the former shutdown cornerback from Florida, especially against the Cowboys, I would go on to say that Asante Samuel was far more impressive. The former University of Central Florida Knight was originally a New England Patriot where he won 2 Super Bowls against the Panthers and the Eagles. However, in 2008, he became too expensive to be retained by the Patriots, so he became the jewel of the 2008 free agent class for the Philadelphia Eagles that had 0 defensive and special teams touchdowns the previous year. With Asante Samuel, the Eagles went to the playoffs in 3 consecutive years from 2008 to 2010 and had 20 total interceptions in those years. While he didn't have nearly as many pick sixes as Lito Shepherd had in the regular season, there were 2 times where he almost got it in for the touchdown. Asante wasn't known for being a physical cornerback as he wasn't so good at tackling. However, he was a shutdown cornerback and he would bait quarterbacks into throwing to open receivers. Asante would step in front of the ball and take it the distance. My favorite Asante Samuel pick 6 was back in the 2008 season during the team's wildcard playoff game against the Vikings. The late quarterback Tavares Jackson would throw a pass intended for Sidney Rice and it would be intercepted by Asante Samuel, where he would run the ball back 40 yards for the touchdown to make the score 16-7. While running into the end zone, Jackson would attempt to make a tackle tackle, but he would be trucked by the backup defensive end Chris Clemens. The Eagles would win the game 26-14, and the Eagles would go to the NFC Championship game. Asante Samuel would play 2 more years with the Falcons after leaving the Eagles in 2011. Let's just say that while Asante wasn't the greatest overall cornerback in the league, he was far better than the burnt toast the team has employed since then. There have been many successful return men on the Eagles while I've been a fan, and DeSean Jackson is one of those home run hitters, but we already talked about him above. On this list, the biggest home run hitter on special teams since I've been a fan was the man known as Mighty Mouse from 2014 all the way to 2019. Darren Sproles was originally a Charger back in 2005, then was signed by the Saints in 2011, and finally with the Eagles in 2014, where for the most part he was one of the most important offensive players. He could run the ball, catch the ball, and run back punt returns with relative ease. He could also score from anywhere on the field and would be so low to the ground that sometimes he couldn't be tackled. I'll never forget every time he had a chance to run back the ball, I would yell, "Tootsie!" because that is what I called him, Tootsie Sproles. That is also what I named every one of my fantasy football teams. He was just so elusive and would instantly break ankles of any player that came against him. From 2014 to 2016, Sproles would go to 3 consecutive Pro Bowls and would return 4 punts for touchdowns. My favorite instance where he scored a home run play was in the 2015 season, where Darren Sproles was by far the offensive MVP of the Eagles. The Eagles found themselves sitting at 0-2 and were playing against the 2-0 Jets in a Week 3 game against a rookie head coach and Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. The Eagles had a 3-0 lead in the second quarter when Jets punter Ryan Quigley, doesn't that just roll off the tongue, made a booming punt all the way to the Eagles' 11-yard line. And before getting past the 50, Darren Sproles would get contacted 7 times by Jets players that could only get as far as to nip his heels. He ran the rest of the 50 yards into the end zone for an 89-yard punt return for a touchdown. The Eagles would get their first win on that day after a 24-17 win where Sproles would record 2 total touchdowns. Sproles would retire after the 2019 NFL season after 3 consecutive seasons where he spent the majority of the time on the injury list. However, in 2017, Darren Sproles would be a part of the Eagles Super Bowl 52 team, despite the fact that he didn't play in the game because of injury. He did earn a ring, which was well deserved because for 3 consecutive years, he was the team's whole offense. Thank you all for watching this episode of my top 3. If you have a favorite home run hitter on your football team, please comment about it in the comment section below. Also, if you have a category that you'd like to see for a future video, please comment about it as well. Thank you and have a great day.